Hello and welcome to episode 134 of the official EstablishTheRun.com podcast. My name is Adam Levitan. I'm one of the co-founders here at ETR. I'm the father of the most beautiful beast in the world, Jerry. We are coming off of a tournament players dream week. Yes, that's right. If you go to GPP school and you take tournaments 101, aka all of Dink and Leone's stuff, this week 10 situation we saw is going to be part of the curriculum. When ownership condenses so heavily on three running backs, Aaron Jones 43% owned, Mike Davis 41%, Duke Johnson 22%, and we know so many people are playing them together in lineups. I mean, this is the dream. I just think about it. Let's say the contest is 500 people. Instead of having to beat 499 people to get first, if we find a fade on two or even three of these running backs and they fail, well, we only have to beat 300 teams instead of 500, or 250 teams instead of 500 immediately. And then if we think about it from a more micro perspective, the running backs we liked all week as pivots, like Alvin Kamara, 13%, Miles Sanders, 14%, DeAndre Swift, 6%, Antonio Gibson, 14%, Leonard Fournette, 6%. Well, how often do those guys beat Mike Davis and Duke Johnson and Aaron Jones? And I'm not talking about beat them in points per dollar. I'm talking about raw points because, yeah, we may have lost some salary space, but the other positions, wide receiver, tight end, are so much more varied. Lower floors, higher ceilings, generally speaking. So we can find ways. We can find, DJ Moore at 5,100, or Deontay Johnson at 5,200, or Chase Claypool at 5,800. We can find Logan Thomas, LT3, or Jordan Reed at tight end. And we know we're not going to get buried at the tight end position, of course. So obviously it's easy to say now, but Swift outscoring Duke Johnson. I mean, we had Duke Johnson projected for 16.2 Draftkings points and Swift for 14.1. If we ran a million sims of the week, given those projections, how often does Swift win? There's a correct answer there, obviously, if we ran it, but I'll tell you what, it's a lot more than 6% Swift versus 22% Duke, or 6% Swift versus 43% Mike Davis. So anyway, while it was a really brutal week for cash, I have no regrets about playing Davis, Duke, Aaron Jones, Goddard, etc. It was still a brutal week for cash. It was a good week for sharp tournament players. These are the kind of weeks that they live for. Leone got second in the Thunderdome, had a few other big scores. Dink had some near misses in the large field stuff. And for the first time in my life, I mean, honestly, this is probably the first time ever, I actually salvaged my week a little with a GPP team. I always thought of this notion like, well, I did bad in cash, but thankfully I had a good week in tournaments. Like, I thought that was just something the Pez said, like something like fake, like the tooth fairy, or nude beaches with beautiful women instead of disgusting dudes, or fake internet money being worth 17,000 a coin, just unreal. But yes, I was actually able to salvage a little. Shout out to me. I had 7 tournament teams. Best one was a Kyler single stack. And I actually prefer Kyler single stacks because his rushing projection is so absurd, and especially in terms of touchdowns. And so I didn't love the price on Christian Kirk either. And so I had Kyler single stack with Hopkins, obvious bring back in Stephon Diggs. Obviously, very expensive to play Kyler, Hopkins, Diggs. Had to save money, so I ate the Mike Davis chalk. But I saved money with the Rams defense at 2,200, which, I thought it was a good play for a few reasons. I would say first, line movement on Rams was ridiculous. Like opened Seattle -1, closed Rams -3. Like very clear the sharps were on the Rams. Such a good pass defense. And I also thought it was solid leverage off the Russ stuff, which I knew would be popular, like Russ, Lockett, Metcalf. But anyways, the rest of the lineup, correlation, secondary correlation, that we were talking about with DeAndre Swift and Terry McLaurin. And so, you just want those guys working together, making big plays in the same game, good weather, obviously inside. By the way, I wanted to mention that around 12:30, Tom Pelissero tweeted that DeAndre Swift will be getting his first, start, quote unquote, per source. The Lions were going to expand his role. And a lot of times these quote unquote starting announcements don't mean anything, but I thought this one made sense logically. And even if it didn't, Swift's pass down role, his goal line role would be okay at 5,100. So anyway, Swift and McLaurin, mini correlation, hope they speed the game up, etc. And then DJ Moore, who and in a lot of weeks I thought would have been in play for cash. For cash, it's just 5,100 in different context of a slate. And then Jordan Reed, who I thought would have role expansion after being eased in off the knee injury in week 9. So yeah, I mean, I only needed a last minute, last second desperation Hail Mary, of course, but Lineup got 181.2 points, like 30x buy-in, able to salvage the week. I will say this has been, the worst season in cash I've ever had. And it's tempting, man. Like, it's tempting to go full-blown tournament bro. Like, of course, it's more fun to be the tournament bro, put up a little and try to win a lot. And you're able to do thoughtful things like what I talked about for the last few minutes. Of course, it makes sense. And maybe, at some point I will go full tournament bro. But God damn it, I look through these cash games that I'm in, and I still think my teams are massive favorites. So I think I'll continue to be stubborn, go DOTL, dick on the line in cash, and try not to get tutted. Speaking of getting tutted, I want to talk about late swap for a second. So, like, this was a really unique week for late swap, and I don't want to go too far into it because it's not going to happen like this. This was so unique in that the chalk running backs were all playing at 1 o'clock. If you didn't play them, you just got so much information. So I played Mike Davis. I hardly played any Duke Johnson or Aaron Jones at 1 o'clock in tournaments. And then I knew if those guys would have gone off at 1 o'clock, Duke Johnson, Aaron Jones, I would have had to get like wild with stacks, at 4 o'clock, like really contrarian. But since if you don't play them and you have Swift or Gibson or McLaurin or whatever you had, if you get a good start without those guys, then you can go to the Josh Allen and Kyler stacks and just crush so many other teams. And then in cash, I thought a lot about late swapping to a stack for the 4 p.m. games, a lot about it. But I felt like Michael Thomas was unique enough. And so maybe it was a mistake. And maybe I should have gotten off Kyler because I knew Kyler would be like 3 times the ownership of Josh Allen. And so I thought about going to a Josh Allen dig stack. Didn't do it. Thought my team was unique enough. Pretty tilting for sure, because you ended up only needing like one thing to go right in cash. Like, if you just would have played Steph Diggs over Michael Thomas, like, I would have won, pretty easily. And so pretty frustrating there. Okay, before we get to today's listener questions, I wanted to remind everyone that we do have a sponsor for this podcast. Yes, this podcast is brought to you by the good people at Underdog Fantasy. If you want some background on them, I'd really recommend going back and listening to episode 82. I did an interview with Jeremy Levine, their founder. Anyway, I think Underdog has some innovative games that people will enjoy. The concept that is most interesting is Battle Royale. It's a combination of DFS and best ball. Really simple. Draft 6 players in a snake draft, but it's a GPP style tournament for just 1 week. So strategy is really interesting. You're not going to get deep into the player pool, but we need to find some off the board plays. We need to find some correlations. We can get to the top of the players, top of the tournament, just like we need to in DFS. You can get in for $5. First place is $4K. After you deposit, mention on the pop-up, you heard about Underdog on ETR, and you'll be eligible for some ETR swag that we'll have an announcement about very soon. Again, underdogfantasy.com, and make sure to enter promo code ETR after you make a deposit. Okay, enough is enough. It's time for everyone's favorite portion of the program. Producer Luke, hit the theme music. All right, got a ton of good ones as always. Really appreciate everybody sending in the questions. Going to do 7 today. Question 1 comes from Matt P. He says, 0 RB is working well for me, but obviously the T levels, the testosterone levels, take a hit. Our testicles are designed to be outside our body in order to keep them cool. Sitting for long periods can cause the jewels to overheat. Are you considering a standing desk for research and podcasts? There's a lot to unpack here in this question, Matt. First of all, on 0 RB, the season-long strategy of mostly avoiding running backs until the later rounds because of injury rates, because of extreme role fragility, simply because raw scoring at wide receiver is better in today's NFL. I think people are seeing it play out as intended this season to some degree. And by the way, it's not really 0 RB, right? Like, no one was passing on Christian McCaffrey or Alvin Kamara or Saquon Barkley or Ezekiel Elliott or Dalvin Cook. But God, I mean, if you took Le'Veon Bell over DK Metcalf, just end it. If you took Leonard Fournette over Calvin Ridley, like, Jesus. Season-long leagues, I think, were won or are being won by just hammering wide receiver over and over and over again in the early and middle rounds. And we knew that. We saw that coming just by the guys who were available. I don't want to get into a 0 RB argument on here. To me, the best point, though, is comparing role fragility. I mean, Clyde Edwards-Helaire went like 6th overall. and then they sign Le'Veon Bell off the street or trade for him or whatever, and CH is just dusted. Leonard Fournette gets cut. Jonathan Taylor is in a 3 running back committee. Le'Veon. Can you imagine DK Metcalf or Adam Thielen or AJ Brown or Tyler Lockett or Keenan Allen or Calvin Ridley or whatever mid-round wide receiver guy you want? Can you imagine them, just like losing work to a guy or just getting cut or losing snaps to like a dude off the street? It's literally impossible, but it happens all the time at running back. Anyways, yes, of course, not establishing the run is extremely low T. Like, are you even a man if you don't get into a jumbo set with a fullback and exert your will over the defense with a 3-yard halfback dive into the center's back? So yeah, for a lot of reasons, Matt, I'm down with the standing desk. As soon as I move, I'm going to get one, maybe even a treadmill desk. Never used either one before, but I think it has to be right, just logically. Question 2 from Crunchy Peanut Butter says, what's your favorite fast food? Yeah, none. I'm just like so particular about my meat, man. Like I know I'm insane, but I just can't do it. I can't really eat a burger or whatever from McDonald's. Like my mouth physically won't let me. It's crazy. When I was younger, like in high school, I got Wendy's drive-through a lot, chicken nuggets. I got Subway a lot in college. I don't know if that's fast food, but as an adult, I've had this really bad bread addiction. Like I really can't stop. So for me, it's not fast food. I just like grab a bagel or a pizza or a soft pretzel or a croissant. I literally can't stop with this bread thing. Even though it makes me feel awful, I can't stop. And so some people probably remember that bet that I did with Bales and Peter a couple of years ago. We did, I think it was a penalty bet on beige carbs for each infraction, aka an eating of a beige carb. There was a 1K penalty. And so I didn't eat any beige carbs for, I think it was 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. And I felt amazing. Really did. I felt lighter. I had more energy. I don't want to get, too graphic, but my digestive system, I mean, I barely needed toilet paper after I went to the bathroom. Just ridiculous. But I just couldn't keep up with it. I was hungry a lot, and bread is just so quick and easy and tastes so good. So I don't know. At some point, I'd really like to work on my eating and mostly cut out bread. I'm sure I'm addicted to it in the same way other people are addicted to fast food, and I'm not sure it's even any better. Question 3 from Colin. Any advice on how to explain EV to my wife? I play as a hobby, and we are in a financial position where I could comfortably move upstate. I've shown her my results, which shows I'm slightly profitable over the last 3 years, but she still equates DFS with quote unquote gambling. Yeah, so I think some people are just never going to understand, right? Like based on the way they were raised or whatever pre-existing biases they have in their head, they're just never going to get it. They're never going to like put the time in to try to understand. I think one thing you could try is a weighted coin, and you can buy these on the internet. You get one that lands on heads like 75% of the time or something like that. So you show her the coin, you tell her it's going to land on heads 75%. Then you flip it 10 times. You show her that, yes, of course, even though we're a 75% favorite, it still lands on tails sometimes. Would she like to bet on 100 flips where she has tails though? Or what about 1,000 or 1,000,000? And the key point to try to make is that obviously if we bet on heads, we're making money every time. Every time the coin flips and we bet on heads, we're making money, even though we lose sometimes. We're making Sklansky bucks every single time the coin flips. So regardless of result, regardless of if the coin lands tails, we still made money. But look, good luck, Colin. I mean, to me, this isn't about explaining EV or gambling or DFS or anything else. Like your wife, in my opinion, should just trust you. Like if you think it's a good idea to play bigger, if you want to, she should support you. Feel free to have her call me. I'm happy to help. Give a consultation if need be. Let me know. Question 4 from Dallas. What are the main differences on how you go about constructing a cash lineup versus single entry tournament team? Man, just couldn't be more different. In cash, I'm not worried about correlation at all. I'm not worried about ownership. I'm not worried about leverage. I'm simply playing the best plays. I think people make mistakes in single entry of putting their cash team in or putting their cash team in with just 1 or 2 small tweaks. Since so many people are doing that, there's a ton of value in single entry in making even more contrarian teams, even more highly correlated teams, stacks and double stacks and bringbacks and double bringbacks and secondary correlation. A lot of the stuff that I talked about with my Kyler lineup earlier. Again, if you're interested in this tournament stuff, I can't recommend Dink and Leone's Saturday show on Saturdays enough. This is all they talk about each week, in the context of the slate. Question 5 from Gary. He says, who is Jerry, the beautiful beast? Yeah, I'm sure there are some new listeners out there who don't know who Jerry is. So, long before this podcast was, about sex jokes or germ jokes or anything else, the bit, and honestly, it wasn't even a bit, like it was about my feelings for this dog. We got Jerry in 2014. She's a golden retriever poodle mix. I wanted a full-blown golden retriever, but my wife didn't want the dog shedding constantly all over the house. So that's why we got the golden doodle. She doesn't shed at all. But anyways, I mean, this dog, I just love this dog so much. We were inseparable. We are inseparable, best friends. But yeah, it's been a long time now, possibly time to drop Jerry from the intro. Question 6 from George Murray. He says, YOLO'd my first $50 double up single entry. It's surprisingly not as sharp as I expected. Still finished top 10%. When should a low stakes player feel confident enough to jump in with the sharps? Should bankroll or process dictate that jump? I'd say a combo of bankroll and process. If you have a repeatable process going that has shown a long-term results, moving up is fine. Taking shots is fine. I talked about that a few episodes ago. Overall, though, I'd encourage people to think of their DFS roll as a percentage of their life roll. I don't think really people think about it like that. Like they just put some money on Draftkings or Fanduel or whatever. If they bust it, they fire in more. But what if, we say I always want to have around 1% of my net worth as my DFS bankroll. Or at the beginning of the NFL season or at the beginning of the NBA season, I'm going to take 2% of my net worth. And if I grow it to a point where it makes sense, I can play bigger. And I think that makes more sense than just kind of, doing it off the cuff. All right, question 7, last question we're gonna do today. I didn't get to catch the name here, but somebody sent in an email to our Established Run support email. And yeah, he says, at GenderLabs LLC, have you done any testing on the PCC post-coitus centrifuge approach as a method of giving all sperm, but particularly male sperm, a post-ejaculatory velocity boost? If you're not familiar, this entails taking your wife or consenting partner by the legs after the deposit and spinning as fast as possible, a la the 1992 film, The Cutting Edge, where the former hockey player turned figure skater Doug Dorsey executes this dangerous but triumphant finale to take Olympic gold in figure skating. I can say that I am 1-for-1 using this method and having a boy, but there are obvious questions regarding statistical relevance due to sample size. So your expertise and that of GenderLabs is necessary. Thank you, and be sure to stretch before trying this at home. Rob. Oh, the guy's name is Rob. Yeah, I'm not even going to answer this one. I just wanted to read it because I thought it was funny, but you guys are sick perverts, man. It's possible. I mean, the more that I get like this, the more questions that people send in like this, I think it's possible. I mean, not confirmed. I'd have to think about this, but I think it's possible that this bit has gone too far. I don't know. I'm going to think about it. All right. That's going to do it for today's solo pod. Be sure to head to establishingrun.com. We are planning some really big stuff for Black Friday, not just in terms of sales, but some really cool stuff for people who are already subs, extra shows for Thanksgiving week, et cetera, et cetera. So head to the site. We'll have more information on that soon. For producer Luke, for Jerry, I am Adam. Good luck, everybody.